All right, let's plug in. Today we are diving headfirst into the wild, complicated, and honestly brilliant world of Jaglavak 1963. Now, I know it's a super dense universe full of augmented reality, corporate backstabbing, and even psychic parasites, but don't you worry. We're going to break it all down and make it make sense.
So, where do we even begin? Well, we're going to start exactly where our hero does, in a state of just total, absolute confusion. But you got to understand, this feeling you see in the quote, it's not an accident, it's actually a weapon. It's a mental fog that's being used against him, to leave him vulnerable, to make him question his own reality. And then, just like that, the fog of confusion explodes into this sudden, totally bizarre violence. 1 second you're lost, and the next, you're a weapon. This 1-2 punch, confusion, then violence, that's pretty much the baseline for existing in this world. Okay, to really get what's happening, we have to go to the scene of the crime, and that's a strip club, of all places, called the Bouncy Castle. It's meant to be a safe space for our guy, but right now, it's ground zero for a full-on, high-tech assault.
And this really boils it all down, doesn't it? On one side, you have our hero, Papillon Day, just trying to figure out what is going on. And on the other, you have his friend Simone, who's been turned into a literal puppet, a weapon pointed right at his head.
Yeah, this is not some random chaos. There is absolutely someone pulling the strings. Her name is truly scrumptious. And she's not even there in person. No, she's controlling Simone remotely, turning a friend into a monster from the comfort and safety of her own virtual reality setup.
And this is where things get weird. He's facing a friend who's trying to bash his skull in with a piston rod, and what's his weapon of choice? Not a gun, not a real knife. It's a soda. It sounds completely insane, right? But believe me, in this world, it is the perfect counterattack, and we're going to find out why in just a minute.
So here's the crucial thing to get. This is not just a bar fight. It is all happening inside this massive, layered, augmented reality game called the Imagined Nation. And it has its own tech, its own rules, and its own very unique kind of horror. So let's break down how this whole thing works.
The key to all of this is this substance right here, PS 82.6. They also call it GEV, which stands for God's Eye View. And it's not just a drug. You should think of it more like a biological hacking tool. It lets someone completely, 100%, take over another person's body.
And here's the playbook for how it's done. First, the target gets dosed. Second, their entire identity is basically overwritten, turning them into this thing called a griot. And finally, a remote controller, someone like Truly, just puts on a VR headset and pilots them around in the real world like they're a character in a video game. And this, right here, this is the most important and, frankly, the most terrifying rule of the game. Some people, the avatars, like Truly, they're just playing. They're plugged in, safe and sound. But others, the non-player characters, like Simone, they aren't just code. They are real people in the real world whose free will has been totally and completely stolen.
Okay, so now that we've got a handle on the horrifying rules of this world, let's zoom in on the man at the center of it all. Who exactly is Papillon Day, and why is all of this insane stuff happening to him?
Well, the answer isn't so simple, because he's not just one person. He's a writer and an artist, sure, but he's also a virtual character named Mr. Periwinkle Bubbles. He's a host for an artificial personality called Sting, and he's the heir to this really strange, really dangerous family legacy. This is a man who is literally living on multiple planes of existence all at once.
And that brings us back to his weapon, the soda. See, it wasn't random at all. The phosphate in the soda isn't just a drink ingredient. It's a specific chemical countermeasure. It works like a low-tech jamming signal. It scrambles the connection between the puppet and the puppeteer, basically short-circuiting the mind control. Pretty clever, right?
But look, fighting off his hijacked friends in a strip club, that's only half of his problem. Papillon is fighting a war on two fronts at the same time. One for his life out on the streets, and another for his career in the corporate boardroom. His success has put a target on his back, everywhere he goes.
So on one front, you have the immediate physical danger. This is truly scrumptious, taunting him while she sends a whole crew of hijacked people to attack him, just mocking how pathetic his weapons seem. And on the other front, you've got this. This is a publishing exec named Palimpsest Velicet, and she is furious because Papillon's book was so successful that he's now using the profits to buy a controlling share of her company. He is literally using the money she helped him make to take over her job.
Now, you can't navigate this much chaos alone, and Papillon has a very unique support system. They're known as the Furniture. It's a group of women who are kind of part friends, part employees, part companions. All of them are bound to him through these really complex contracts that just defy any easy label.
So why him? Why is all of this happening to him? Why is he the target for virtual assassins and corporate sharks? Well, the answer isn't about what he's done. It's about what he inherited. A power that's both a gift and a really terrible curse.
See, he has the ability to see these things. Hinks. The easiest way to think of them is as psychic parasites. They feed on people who are, spiritually dying. To you and me, they'd be completely invisible. But to Papillon, they are very real, very horrifying monsters.
This entire ability comes from a pair of glasses that were passed down to him by his uncle Ishmael. But these glasses don't just let him see the hinks. They also flood his brain with the memories of every single person who has ever worn them. It's not just a power, it's a legacy of shared trauma and crushing responsibility.
Which leaves us with the big question that hangs over this entire story. In a world where your friends can be turned into puppets, where your own memories might not even be yours, and where reality itself can be hijacked, who's really the player and who's just a piece on the board?